Good afternoon on what is a bright, sunny and warm day. It is Wednesday the 23rd of March. I'm back in the reading nook with a very heavy box which I've already been into and a nice hot cup of tea. So, diving back into this box, let's find out what we've got in here. The packaging. So, first off we've got some dice. So this is John Carter of Mars dice. So pretty much bet that this is a big box of Modiphius content, and then I've basically got more card decks for John Carter of Mars. Pulling out the first pack, I've gone bidding. Let's see what's further down, and close that up so it doesn't get in the way. And what we've got in here is this, which is Robert E. Howard's Conan, Adventures in an Age Undreamed of, 2D20 system from Modiphius Entertainment. This was published a few years ago. Let's have a look, see if I find a date on this. 2017, okay, so 3 years old, but it's supported with a lot of supplements, some of which I've been able to unbox, some of which I'm able to review, and I'm planning to review a whole lot more in the future. And this has to be probably 4th or 5th Conan role-playing game, since we've had scenarios for it for Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and then the TSR Conan role-playing game, and then the GURPS supplements for it, and then followed in. So that was would have been in sort of like late 80s, early 90s. Then we go into the noughties with the let me try to think. With the Mongoose Publishing version, and this is the latest version, and let's say very well supported it is. So, welcome to the Hyborian Age. Know, O Prince, that between the years when the oceans drank Atlantis and the gleaming cities, and the years of the rise of the sons of Aris, there was an age undreamed of, when shining kingdoms lay spread across the world like blue mantles beneath the stars. Robert E. Howard's Conan, Adventures in an Age Undreamed of, takes you into the world of Conan the Barbarian, where heroes raise blood-spattered swords against dire sorcery. Exotic lands beckon to the daring. Danger and treasure lurks in forgotten ruins, and where loathsome creatures haunt the spaces beneath the earth, as well as in the throne rooms of mighty kingdoms. Seek your fortune in forbidden tombs or upon blood-soaked battlefields. Cast dark and terrible spells of unimaginable power at the price of your soul. Sail upon untamed seas to lands where no human in living memory has walked. Fight for the fate of civilization or barbarianism on a savage frontier. Create your own legend in this decadent and violent world. Complete 2D20 system including combat skills, talent, sorcery and equipment suitable for adventuring in the age before history. An extensive gazetteer covering the whole of Conan's world, featuring far Aquilonia, gloomy Cimmeria, magic-haunted Stygia, all the way to the far-off steaming jungles of Katai. Extensive guidance for running scenarios and campaigns in the Hyborian Age, allowing game masters to create suitably Howardian adventures. Fearsome foes ranging from bandits to sorcerers, apes to giant serpents, children of Set to frost giants, forest devils, and characters of renown such as Conan or his most deadly foe, Thoth Amon. Art by a team of iconic Conan artists including Brom, Tim Truman, San Julian, Esteban Morato, Frolian Gardner, Simon Bisley, Tomas Giarello, and more. Developed in close consultation with the award-winning Conan scholars, this is the most authentic depiction of Conan and his world ever published for games. Now, I can't necessarily say to that claim, but I'm saying they did a good job on it. So I'm not saying it. So we open up. We've got the map of Hyboria. This and that's a map of the publishers we use again and again. On the inside, we have Conan in action in the frozen wastes, but in between. Okay, we have quite a lot of content. So, forward by the lead developer and author Jason Durrell. Before we get on to the introduction to the role, to the setting, and explaining who Conan is, who Robert E. Howard was, and his significance. So lots of, but nice bit of background. It really sets the theme and setting of the game up for the benefit of both the game master and her players. We've got a bit of interaction, of course, new to role-playing game, as you would expect. Before we get into essentially player characters, dice, paper and pencils, etc. I mean, pretty much standard, but obviously explanation of what you'll need for the 2d20 system. So we'll get into characters and how to create one, and that's again a bit like, I mean, pretty much like a lot of the other 2d20 system role-playing games, where you are taking the player character through several steps, from their origins to what their most recent career was. So here we start off with this homeland, and this is something which you can roll or pick. And so that goes from Aquilonia and the Bosonian marches through to Vendaya and Kitai. So the talents for that Aquilonia will be Cosmopolitan, Bosonian marches Hunter, Vendaya Gilded, and Savage Court for Kitai. I'm just going to do the same for each of the different steps. So then we have attributes, and they're not rolled for, they are assigned. Choosing your cast, again you can roll for your cast, and that's your family and your social standing, and we've got talents associated with that. Then you get into step 4, that's beginning to build the story of your character. So, for example, step 4 story, and you might have crafter stories, exalted mark, gifted mark, or the quiet hours of peace, prepared for war, too many closed minds, sundered mark. It's again random elements which will add to the character's background. So it does this all the way through for outcast stories, petty nobility, priesthood stories, and so on. To warrior, then we have archetype. That's archer. Basically archer, barbarian, mercenary, noble warrior, nomad, pirate, priestess, scholar, scoundrel, witch, shaman. So there's the list. But then we actually turn over the page and we've got full illustrations of what they ask you. Roll on the table and then you refer here. So archer, barbarian, mercenary, noble warrior. And there are lots of these with nomad, priestess, pirate, and scholar. And essentially the player is noting these elements down and beginning to build about the character, rounding out with scoundrel and witch or shaman. And then further steps deal with, let's have a look, just see where we are, with your character's nature, which might be cautious or scheming or wrathful or something like that. And education. Again, you're building the background, building the history of the character, up through to step 8, which is war story. And finishing touches. And you've got a complete description of basically how this works for the player characters, how you create a character, an example of character creation. And they'll get the final calculations like belongings and so on. And there's rules in here for sample character names and doing it a bit quicker than is necessarily presented in the rules, because the core rules are not particularly quick, but they're detailed and they're flavoursome. Again, we've got more artwork, and see how a lot of this artwork I'm looking at this again. Oh, I can recognise this from other supplements. And So basically cover from Conan the Scout. So there is a bit of, I mean, bit of recycling here, but that's no bad thing. You know, it's great artwork. We've got a big chapter of skills and talents, so you can see. So, for example, turn over as your characters progress, you can have talents, and we've got like an acrobatics talents tree there with 6 talents on. And it's going to do the same for alchemy and animal handling and so on, right all the way through. So developing the characters, what they can do for all of the skills and talents. Essentially, all of the skills have talents attached to them. So all the way through, from sailing, society, personality, sorcery, all of it here. Again, society and then sorcery. Again, nice artwork, nice dark artwork, dark themed. So here we are. Then we actually get on to the rules, and the rules of the 2D system where you are. You've got the core mechanic is add a skill to an attribute, and then attempt to roll on 2d20, roll under the total of that value to get successes. If you roll under the skill, if you've got a focus, then you're going to get extra successes, and then you've got combat dice for rolling the effects. Ordinary six-sided dice. And then momentum. Momentum is essentially equivalent to hero points, but you'll generate it when you roll for more successes than you need to achieve a task, and you bank it from one scene to the next. Can be saved to a limited extent, but can be used to basically ask the game master questions or buy more dice, trigger examples, trigger particular talents and that sort of thing. And then we get into combat. There's a bit of rules in here for using miniatures if you want to, but pretty much it's mostly theatre of the mind. I mean, the great thing about the momentum is that it gets to be a bit cinematic, which is what you really want from like a swords and sorcery role-playing game like Conan. So we've got a description of action scene, momentum spends, so you can increase bonus damage or so on, and more. So you can actually do basic combat. You've got rules here for displays of might. So you can defeat it, but almost defeat through intimidation, through your martial prowess without even hitting anyone. I've got nice big examples. I've got an example of play already, but there's an example of combat, nicely marked out and easy to read through. More of this artwork. I don't remember this one being used as a cover so far, but again, great. Again, good artwork throughout. We have a big list of equipment, but it's not something. It's important, but it doesn't play a huge role in the game. You know, we do the same thing for weapons. And these are all interesting. They're all individualised. They all have their advantages and disadvantages. Then we get on to sorcery. So the types of sorcery you might have: Western sorcery or Eastern, theurgy, shamanism, witchcraft, Acheronian magic. Again, most player characters will have access to limited magic and has its downsides. And you have, unlike you, basically basic sorcery talents at the beginning, but you've also got advanced ones here. So this is quite detailed rules for it. And we've got a quick list of spells there. So there isn't a huge amount of spells, and you're not necessarily meant to sort of like to be wandering around with an arsenal of spells or so on, I suppose. And you've got individual spells can be further individualised in their effects with momentum spends on them. So for example, Form of the Beast, again, you've got momentum spends and alternate effects. So whilst there aren't a huge number of spells, there are ways of individualising them and getting the most out of them. And so it's quite detailed in that way. Another piece of artwork again. I believe that's been used on the cover of a book. So I'll get the map again, and I think this is obviously the beginning of the Gazetteer. It's going to be quite lengthy. So the Hyborian world and exploring each of the different regions. And nicely, there's a bit of an insert. Essentially, we have the Journals of the Wanderers Club. Nice bit of conceit here. You know, the idea that the Hyborian Age was real and is a place for, subject for academic discussion and examination. So here's the outline of what's in here. So that's preparing the game master for the contents of this chapter. So the lands of the north covered here. I'm not going to go through all of these, otherwise it's just showing you sections of the barbarian north. And it's going to do this for each of the areas, different lands, the different cities and settings, lands to the east. But here it's all the basic information that you're going to need, and then after this, really, what you want is basically you might want to look at further supplements dealing with the particular aspects of the of Hyperborea. But again, we've got the lands of the Western Oceans. For example, the big split of Tortage, the Isle of Red Brotherhood, which is pirates, I presume. Yeah, basically. So that's basically got a core idea of base rules of sort of, you want to play a pirate. Here's where you're likely to come from. And you're basically referring to that. Essentially, you've got a pirate amongst your the cast of player characters. This is a sort of like an important section for them, for the game master to bring into play. And of course, obviously, the player characters might just want to have cause to visit that area anyway. So quite an extensive list of or section of the various kingdoms. So let's have a look. So yeah, that's the Gazetteer in the book. And again, new chapter, nice piece of preface-facing artwork, and that's really, again, that's been used as a cover, I believe, quite familiar. And we've got the advice here for the game master on running the game. So the art of game mastering, assumptions of the game and the responsibilities, dealing with threats, what would Howard do, that box there, full of advice for the prospective game master, for handling momentum and so on. And then of course, as the game master, she has access to her own mechanic, the equivalent of momentum, but called Doom. And that works more or less in the same way that momentum does, but for the NPCs. And then we have constant sort of sections as. So, for example, threat. What would Howard do, or crafting adventures that Robert E. Howard away. Environments. What would Howard do? Again, nice analysis of the original source material and taking inspiration from it. Then we have a section of Howard and Lovecraft. Tying that together, should the game master want to, depending on how Lovecraftian the game master wants to make her campaign. So, lots of good advice on game mastering in here. We have backed up with elements such as the trouble of player characters might run into, or carousing events, and this will become a signature feature of the supplements. Carousing events for different aspects of Conan's life. So whether that's Conan the Thief, Conan the Barbarian, or Conan the Pirate, for example. And then we get into, we've got encounters. So this is going to be the bestiary. So we've got standard sort of minions and toughened minions and the like. Cult leaders as a nemesis, degenerates as minions, all the sort of things that Conan might encounter, and so the player characters, degenerate, chief, nemesis, guard, minion, or guard, sergeant, toughened, so different variations upon the various NPCs. So a nice section of range of NPCs. We've got monsters too, like giant constrictor snakes or giant scorpions. Almost like you've got the giant scorpion or serpent there on the front. Giant spider there, scuttling out of the darkness. Before we get on to monstrous foes. Like a Charles Set or a dragon forest. Forest dragon. Not a dragon forest. Or dweller of the deep, not a deep one. So nice range of monsters and NPCs. Everything there that you would imagine you really need. That's a good selection. Then we have characters of renown, so starting off with Conan the Barbarian himself, and he comes with complete stats using the Conan system, and then Almaric of Nemedia, Astris, Chronicler of Nemedia, and this is going to do it again and again from the sort of like the major NPCs of the setting. And then of course down to Thoth Amon of the Ring. So there's the major bad guy of the setting. Before we get into an introductory adventure, which is Vultures of Shem. This takes place in East of Shem, so you've got a section on the map of where the action takes place. And what's happening. We've got a table for looting, which you can obviously adapt for later on. So this is quite a lengthy scenario, but I think you should really get the player characters involved. Lots of action, all the way down to facing the big bad in the interior of the ziggurat of Zuhal-Zal, or Zuhal-Zahar, there for the big finale set piece. And then after that we have more more NPCs, but these are actually heroes of the age, potential allies and enemies drawn from the creative talents of the backers who supported the campaign for Robert E. Howard's Conan Adventures in the Age of Undreamed of on Kickstarter. So these are all ready to play NPCs, or even play characters if necessary, but there's quite a few of them. And they really showcase just what the mechanics are capable of creating. Just show a couple of pages. Okay. And that's banded out with rules reference and index and the character sheet. Okay, that's the character sheet. So that is Robert E. Howard's Conan Adventures in an Age Undreamed of from Modiphius Entertainment. I'm going to be unboxing further supplements for this, and there's a review in the link down below. But if you have enjoyed this unboxing, then please do click on the like button down below. And of course, you've got any comments or feedback. Appreciate you taking the time to post those. And lastly, if you want to be alerted to yet more unboxings where you will see me out here with, at this point, a box and a game or book which I will unbox and chat about to the best extent of my knowledge of roughly 10 minutes or so, all of course accompanied by a nice hot cup of tea. Then please do hit that subscribe button down below. In the meantime, thanks again for watching another unboxing in the Nook, and I'll be back soon with another one. Bye for now.